This is part 2, episode 206. The fire mulberry trees were still the same, red like the clouds of sunrise. When watching from the distance, large amounts of trees carried fiery light, sparkling and translucent, occupying a vast area, red and sparkling, extremely eye-grabbing. When he approached this place, heat immediately hit his face. The fire mulberry trees' flames flowed with scarlet red color, the temperature not low at all. It was just like the scene in the past. The girls were busy working around these mulberry trees, all of them having some cultivation, but not high. Every one of them had a bamboo basket behind them and wore a rough hemp garment, their appearances rather plain and simple. There weren't many people, and they all lived rather simply. Their foreheads were covered in sweat. Because the temperature here was rather high, even those with some cultivation would sweat continuously. On the mulberry tree, there were a few red diamond-like silkworms. These were rare bugs, the silk they released material that could be used to make precious clothes. Shahal walked inside the forest alone, the rustling sounds of flame silkworms chewing on leaves sounding all around him. Strings of fiery light surged from time to time, making this place look rather pretty. When Shahal came here in the past, he didn't discover anything at first, only when he turned around did he meet his old friend. Now that he was revisiting his memories, he carefully looked around, observing these girls who were working around the mulberry trees. However, he didn't find anything. The fire mulberry forest was calm, scarlet multicolored light flickering about, fiery radiance pulsing. Shahal walked through the forest, continuing forward based on his memories. He knew that that place wasn't that far. A single separation took several years. He didn't know how she was now. The large and tall fire mulberry trees, some had already grown for several hundred years, even over 1,000 years. They were thick and powerful, overflowing with fiery light. Shahal found it difficult to calm down. Several years had passed, the fire mulberry tree forest was still here, but he was a bit nervous. Not much time had passed, yet it was enough to change many things. He finally got closer, arriving at this familiar place. A clear spring flowed past, the water flowing over smooth cobblestone. There were fish that occasionally leapt out, a natural and harmonious scene. The depths of the fire mulberry forest was extremely peaceful. There was a bamboo forest here, as well as a small river that helped alleviate the heat. Shahal moved quickly, entering the forest, rushing forward to look inside. In that instant, his expression froze. There should be a thatched cottage there, a small courtyard, a few wooden blocks, as well as some flowers. However now, all of it was gone. There was only a scorched black expanse, the earth completely dried up, filled with burned traces. The small courtyard disappeared, the past peacefulness broken, no plants visible. There were only ashes here. Why? Shahal quickly rushed over. His eyes were flickering with light, penetrating like a blade as they swept over this place, carefully examining every corner of this place. He never expected that in just those few years, everything would no longer exist, end up being destroyed. Hualinga, where did she go? In that instant, a shadow loomed over Shahal's mind. He immediately felt a bad feeling. He came to look for Hualinga, yet in the end, he saw this type of scene. It was clear that an unforeseen event had taken place here, someone burning this place down. Shahal was confident that it wasn't Hualinga who did this. Even if she left, there was no need to burn down her beloved little courtyard, leaving this place in such a miserable state. Who was it? Shahal was angry, and at the same time, his mind trembled, feeling incomparable worry. What exactly happened to Hualinga? Where was she? Why did this type of thing happen? Shahal's mind was in a mess, filled with worry. He hurried over here expecting a reunion, not expecting that he would be this disappointed, seeing this kind of scene. He opened his heavenly eyes, wishing to find some clues. Shahal was shocked. He opened his heavenly eyes, seeing a few damaged articles in the ashes that were smashed to pieces. His hand moved about, sending black-colored earth and stone flying. A bone shield appeared, but it had long been smashed into many pieces. There were traces on it, within it some dark black substance. It was blood that had solidified a long time ago. Shahal's mind immediately trembled, a wave of anger surging, and even more so a type of panic. He feared that something truly bad had happened, a situation he couldn't redeem no matter how great his abilities were. How could it be like this? Who is it that came here, taking action against a helpless young lady? Shahal clenched his fists, his expression ashen. Hualinga didn't have any enemies, no relationship with the outside world. Her hiding here could be said to be separating herself from the rest of the world. So why did this kind of thing happen? Was it because of him? If that was the case, then the other party's methods were too vicious, their nose too keen, even able to find this type of place. Shahao thought again and again, feeling that Hualinga wouldn't incur hatred on her own. If anything unexpected happened, it would have most likely happened because of him. In that instant, Shahao's heart felt cold, feeling a wave of responsibility and regret. If Hualinga suffered from something unexpected because of this, then he would feel bad about it for the rest of his life. Didn't I tell you to leave and not stay here in order to avoid danger? Shahao's voice was trembling a bit, not certain. Back then, he had thought about it too. To avoid having anyone act too viciously, not letting anything go, following the spider's thread and horse tracks to this place, Shahao had previously advised Hualinga to change to a different place. It seemed like a battle had broken out here, an intense conflict. Shahao's heart immediately sank. He carefully searched every part of this place, but in the end, he still didn't find anything, not knowing what happened back then. In that moment, Shahao turned into a streak of rainbow light, wandering about this place. His heavenly eyes were opened, sweeping over every inch of this area, wanting to find some kind of clue. However, he was left disappointed. There were no other clues. No. Shahao shouted, his heart feeling a bit of pain. He feared that something unexpected had happened. If that was the case, then he would regret it for the rest of his life. For one day and one night, Shahao searched through this place, not leaving the scorched black remains. In the end, he became silent, ending up empty-handed. There were 2 small mulberry trees planted at the front of the courtyard. Even though they suffered from the flames as well, they tenaciously grew, because they were fire attribute themselves, not fearing fire. Shahao still remembered planting them with Hualinga back then before leaving, those scenes appearing before him one after another. However, after many years had passed, the small tree grew, now even much taller than him. Only, the one he was looking for wasn't here. Shahao couldn't accept this reality. He traveled 10,000 zhong, quickly leaving this place, heading towards the nearest city. Li Fire City, a place with many fire mulberry trees around it, this place carrying scarlet multicolored light. A few thousand-year-old ancient trees even more so had flames jumping about them, waves of heat spreading. Fire Clan, a place that used flames as the foundation, establishing their sect around fire. This region belonged to the higher realms Fire Clan, so they were naturally close to fire. That was why there were these types of old trees planted nearby. Shahao was unwilling to accept this, rushing into this city. His divine senses swept about in search of powerful cultivators, wishing to understand the situation from their mouths. Soon after, he learned of a few things. It was because for the sake of obtaining news faster, he didn't hesitate to directly take action, taking several city lords into custody and forcefully searching their sea of consciousness, unexpectedly learning about a few things. Sure enough, there were a few people who came here several years ago in search of something, making their way through the fire mulberry tree forest outside the city. In addition, there were some who haven't left yet even now, wandering about. Absolutely intolerable. Shahao was furious, his face full of killing intent, anger overflowing. This was Sinner's Blood Clan's terrain, and it wasn't some important place, quite remote, which was why news from the outside world arrived rather slowly. Everyone already knew that immortal ancient remains had split open, now bordering the 3,000 provinces, and they knew that those geniuses returned. However, they didn't know what exactly happened in immortal ancient during those years. In summary, the information here lagged behind a bit. Everyone only roughly knew about a few things. Shahao's hair stood up in anger, rushing outside the city, heading towards the fire mulberry tree forest again. This time, he coincidentally ran into those suspicious individuals as well. So many years have already passed, what are we even standing guard here for? I heard the immortal ancient battle already ended. Did that youth come out alive, or did he die in immortal ancient remains? Why isn't there anyone who came to inform us? In this Sinner's Blood territory, we've already been forgotten. No one has come to call for our return for several years already. Shahao walked over step by step, his face overcast as he approached them. Those individuals had no idea, continuing as usual, walking towards the burned-down cottage remains. That chick back then really was good. Even though they say she's a Sinner's Blood descendant, she really was super hot. One of them said frivolously. I wonder if she's dead yet. What a pity it is that she didn't end up in our hands. someone said regretfully while laughing. Immediately afterwards, the two of them felt their legs erupt with intense pain, their entire bodies falling down, bloody light flashing. Their legs had already exploded. Who dash? These individuals cried out in alarm, all of them turning around. They only saw a youth walk over. Their expressions immediately changed, because they recognized that person's appearance. It's you, Huang. Shahao pointed forward. A golden beam of light shot out from the end of his finger. Those individuals all cried out loudly, the lower halves of their bodies exploding, their upper halves flying outwards. Speak, what happened back then? Shahao shouted angrily. Don't kill us, we will tell you everything. One of them shouted loudly. We are insignificant, not even knowing that you came back, not receiving any information from the higher-ups. We were completely forgotten here. Don't kill us. They were incomparably scared, quickly telling him everything. Back then, these people received orders precisely to come for Hualinga, to capture her. However, they were a step late. Hualinga's father was previously the human emperor of the lower realm. When he returned and learned that his daughter had met with Shahao, he immediately brought her away. You all didn't find them. Shahao's mind loosened up a bit. We obtained a few clues later on that there was a pursuit afterwards, but we didn't receive any more messages. They replied honestly. On the contrary, it was the Fire Emperor that came here to unleash a great slaughter. Soon after, Shahao understood these people's origins. They were people from Sword Valley, Fire Cloud Cavern, Luofu Valley and others, sure enough, the great sects who took it upon themselves to suppress sinners' blood. At the same time, something else that made his eyes go cold was that there were previously 2 Celestial Clan cultivators who had participated in this. Fire Cloud Cavern, Luofu Valley, and Celestial Clan, you all bully others too far. Shahao burned with anger. He vowed to pay them a visit in the future. He learned what he wanted to know from these people's mouths. In the end, with a wave of his hand, he dealt with them, not showing any mercy. Shahao released a sigh. The world was so large, where was he to go to find Hualinga? He hoped that she was all right. In the following few days, he continued to wander about this place. He thought back to the past, the events in the lower realm, releasing a sigh. This fire mulberry tree forest was extremely large, but Shahao had pretty much seen everything in these past few days. He wanted to see the place Hualinga had previously worked at and carefully observe everything. On the 4th day, Shahao's mind shook, his eyes focusing forward. This place was already quite far from the thatched cottage, at the border of the fire mulberry tree forest. There was someone who was picking at the mulberry trees, a young lady wearing rough hemp garments, beautiful hair scattering down, forehead full of sweat. Her figure was extremely good, only, her appearance was too plain. On her back was a bamboo basket, gathering mulberry leaves here. Previously, Shahao had never seen her appearance, but when he saw her eyes, his mind jumped, almost not daring to believe what he was seeing. Those eyes were extremely familiar. Shahao walked over step by step. That young lady turned around, the bamboo basket in her hands immediately falling, her eyes immediately full of watery mist, vision becoming blurry. It's you, her voice was trembling. Even though her appearance was changed, Shahao still recognized that this was Hualinga. She unexpectedly never left, always staying in the fire mulberry tree forest, always waiting here. She was Hualinga. Scarlet multicolored light surged, the fire mulberry trees everywhere. The temperature was extremely high, fiery mists pervading the air. That young lady was extremely plain and simple, rough clothes covering her body, skin snow white. She had already revealed her real appearance, eyes carrying watery mist, eyelashes long, gently trembling. Hualinga's figure was slender, a head taller than normal girls. She had an extremely perfect figure, curves rising and falling, skin sparkling like ivory. When she recovered her appearance, her entire body possessed spiritual essence. Her heart trembled, walking over one step at a time, looking at the youth before her. Are you still well? Shahao asked. He walked over to meet her. Being able to see Hualinga here gave his mind a wave of warmth that slowly spread. Someone came looking for Hualinga, wishing to treat her with harm, but in the end, she still continued to defend this place, picking mulberry leaves and waiting for his return. This made Shahao's emotions rise and fall. He wanted to say something, opening his mouth, yet not knowing what to talk about. I'm fine, just that after leaving the original place, I was scared that you wouldn't find me after returning. She said quietly. It's too dangerous here. How can you stay here alone? They already burned that thatched cottage and small courtyard down. Shahao walked forward, looking at her. Those two small trees are still there, making it through, so not everything was burned away. Hualinga laughed, her beautiful eyes watery, but her smile was extremely brilliant. Don't continue taking risks like this anymore. Shahao said. I was scared that when you returned, you might think that I was no longer in this world, so I stayed here. I won't stay here anymore. Hualinga said quietly. Shahao felt moved inside, feeling a wave of warmth. He reached out his hand, helping her wipe away the sweat covering her sparkling white face. This place was extremely hot, yet she picked mulberry leaves the entire day. The reunion was extremely ordinary, without great sadness or great joy, only a type of warmth, as well as a type of true exchange of emotions, both of them worried for each other. What did you experience in Immortal Ancient? Was it dangerous? I never thought you would come back so quickly. Hualinga said. During these past few years, she really was worried, because she understood what kind of place that was, what kind of opponents Shahao had to face. One had to bear in mind that since the past to present, it was unknown just how many heroes' bones were buried there. Now that this battle had erupted again, kings from past and present clashed, so it would definitely be incredibly miserable. In her opinion, even though Shahao was strong in the lower realm, there was no way he could move unhindered through Immortal Ancient. Don't worry, I even came back, meaning that those enemies are all defeated. There's not much danger. Shahao laughed, not talking about topics that were too serious. I don't believe it. Immortal Ancient is so large, so many opponents, you definitely went through many hardships. However, no matter what, it is good that you returned alive. Hualinga said. She didn't know what Shahao experienced, but she could guess that he definitely encountered many powerful opponents. She didn't even think about whether or not he could really obtain the number one under the sky title, always praying during these past few years, hoping for him to return alive. Today, she finally saw him return safe and sound, able to let all of her worries go. Go, I'll invite you to eat Immortal Ancient specialties. There's many delicacies to enjoy. Shahao laughed, pulling Hualinga's hand as he walked. He found a peaceful place with a brook, the flowing water releasing pleasant sounds. Hualinga immediately smiled, as if she returned to the lower realm in the 100 Shattered Mountains. This fella always dared to eat anything since the past. This is pure-blooded green flood dragon. Hualinga was shocked, and then her expression quickly changed, saying, it's a heavenly deity. She was immediately stupefied, feeling a great pressure that made her heart pound. Even though that flood dragon had died, there was still a type of terrifying aura pervading the air. Heavenly deities were beings high above all others. When normal deities faced them, they would feel an enormous pressure. Don't worry, already killed it a long time ago. Let me refine its vicious energy, and then we'll turn it into a delicious dish soon. Shahao said. When he carried the flood dragon, it was like cleaning a snake, directly skinning it and cleaning it by the brook. This scene left Hualinga stupefied. That was a heavenly deity. This fella was preparing it in such a daring manner, going to stew it. What exactly did you experience in Immortal Ancient? Hualinga sat by the brook, her voice trembling. Apart from cultivation, it was just fighting and killing, it really was dry and dull. Shahao explained in a simple manner, not wishing to hide anything. Did you kill many opponents? I remember Immortal Palace Inheritor, Ning Chuan, and many exceptional figures all wanted to treat you unfavorably. Hualinga said. Those people, some were defeated, some killed, and some eaten by me. Shahao said, his smile extremely brilliant. I already said that I was unstoppable in Immortal Ancient, ultimately winning, rising up above everyone else. No one was my opponent. You are number one under the sky. Hualinga was greatly shocked. Back then, Shahao truly was valiant in the lower realm, but after he arrived in the higher realms, everything became different. With so many races and talents, even the most powerful geniuses might be drowned out. How could she have predicted that he would be so powerful, unexpectedly dominating Immortal Ancient, becoming unmatched in the struggle against the most powerful? Shahao told her many things in detail, from when he added the 3,000 Dao flames to his body, to the bloody battles with ancient freaks, and then to the hunt of heavenly deities, his relationship with sect masters, as well as crossing heavenly tribulation and others. Hualinga was extremely fascinated as she listened, at the edge of her seat, from time to time feeling worry, other times feeling happy, sometimes frowning, emotions rising and falling. When she finally heard of his success in the holy sacrifice realm, killing heavenly deities, Hualinga was greatly shaken, her beautiful eyes widening, revealing astonishing brilliance. She was truly moved. How old was Shahao? He was just over 20, yet he already slaughtered the higher realm's heavenly deities. What kind of might was this? Needless to say, he was definitely going to overlook the world under the sky, dominate the 3,000 provinces, becoming one of the higher realm's most powerful individuals. We're thinking too much, it's still early. I want to fight, at the desolate border, unravel the mystery of endless time, hoping to understand the reason for immortal ancient great era's destruction. I want to know why immortals fell, and I am even more curious as to why there are no more long-life individuals in the present age. Shahao said to himself there. All of these things were impossible to achieve right now. He could only become stronger step by step. Hualinga's mind was greatly shaken. She never thought that Shahao would take that type of path, truly something of a magnificent scale. The future path was definitely incomparably distant. All right, the flood dragon meat is done, and the dragon sparrow also finished roasting. Hurry and eat. Shahao called Hualinga over. Hualinga's eyes were previously carrying a bit of mistiness, a bit sad and emotional, but right now, she released a laugh. It really was hard to change this guy's nature, he was just like before. The specialty he brought out from Immortal Ancient was actually heavenly deity meat. This guy was completely a foodie. If others found out that heavenly deity meat was being eaten, it would definitely scare people to death, leaving all sides greatly shaken. Meanwhile, this meat also allowed Hualinga to see a step further Shahao's extraordinary cultivation, hunting down heavenly deities not just for food. Here, a gift for you. When they finished their meal, Shahao said it like this. Hualinga was currently seated, refining spiritual essence, because after eating heavenly deity meat, for her it really had powerful effects. She had to operate bone texts to help digest it. What kind of gift? Hualinga was curious. Was it something else to eat? She had these suspicions. With a shua sound, multicolored light flickered, dense spiritual essence pervaded the air. An ancient cauldron appeared, within its sparkling sand, precisely the all-life earth. Meanwhile, inside the cauldron was a small tree that was full of flowers, as well as quite a few underripe fruits. I ask Senior to bestow me a fruit. Shahao greeted, and then reached out his hand. That little tree swayed, and then the golden leaves blossomed with multicolored light, becoming more and more holy. A fruit fell from the treetop with a kai sound, golden yellow and surging with holy radiance. Shahao accepted it, and then handed it to Hualinga, saying, "Take it." What is this? Hualinga was shocked. Could this be a divine fruit? This was what she guessed. You guessed right, it's divine medicine. Hurry up and eat it, I'll help you stand guard. Shahao said, carrying a smile as he encouraged. Hualinga shook her head, saying, I think it's better if I don't. Right now, I am without sickness or calamity, eating it like this is too much of a waste. You should keep it at your side, so that you can quickly recover, if you are ever seriously injured. I don't need it, hurry up and eat it already. Shahao urged. Under his continuous insistence, Hualinga had no choice, but to start eating this golden fruit. When it entered her mouth, sweet fragrance assailed her senses, and a wave of heat entered her body. Immediately afterwards, endless symbols surged, entering her blood and bones, cleansing her flesh and tempering her muscles and bones, reconstructing her body. She was immediately submerged under golden light. What is this? Why do I feel like I've been reborn, my cultivation rapidly increasing, magical force also starting to strengthen? Hualinga cried out in alarm. She didn't know what was happening. This type of situation was extremely strange. What is this? She asked Shahao, finding it hard to calm down. Heavenly deity fruit, it can allow your cultivation to quickly catch up and exceed me. Shahao said with a smile. It's that kind of this world, really has heavenly deity fruits. Hualinga's voice was trembling. She couldn't help but cry out in shock. This type of fruit was too precious, allowing the ordinary to immediately transform. Even if one didn't have cultivation, as long as they ate this heavenly deity fruit, they could immediately become a heavenly deity. Hualinga underwent clear changes. In the following day and night, the vermilion bird bloodline was opened up another step, her flesh becoming perfect, sparkling white and brilliant. Fiery light flickered, burning her body, making her flesh and spirit undergo shocking changes. This was heavenly deity fruit. It had wondrous effects that produced instantaneous effects. Am I really going to succeed? Huolinga was moved. She felt her cultivation immediately become who knew how many times greater. It was just too fast. In this world, everyone felt that the heavenly deity tree was priceless, more precious than any other divine medicine. It was because it could allow a great sect to quickly flourish. Everyone knew that eating a fruit could create a heavenly deity. When this continued for a long time, who could compare to that sect? Aya, did I really become a heavenly deity? When Huolinga finished this process, she was incredibly excited and moved. Shahao gave her such a precious item, granting her the cultivation of a heavenly deity. She got up, carefully controlling her power, now finally certain that she became a heavenly deity, transcending above. She could now look down on all of her peers. All of this was because of the young man before her. You don't have to worry about your cultivation anymore, right? Shahao said with a laugh. Huolinga's heart pounded greatly. Immediately becoming a heavenly deity, this was simply unimaginable, too ridiculous. Thank you. Huolinga said. Even though she knew that by becoming a heavenly deity, in the future, she would still be surpassed by Shahao, she still couldn't suppress her joy. Let's go, we're leaving this place. Shahao said, about to bring her away. Where are we going? Huolinga asked. After becoming a heavenly deity, her previous worries seemed to have weakened. Right now, she was full of life, lively and excited. Of course, this was only on the surface. Deep down, she knew that she could only accompany Shahao for a set amount of time. Compared to his endless and brilliant life, her road and time wouldn't be too long. As long as they walked through this together, then that was enough. Huolinga said quietly to herself. However, soon after, she released a light sigh, her eyes growing dim. How could she catch up to Shahao's footsteps? Even though Huolinga was unordinary, the vermilion bird bloodline within her revived. That was still a brilliance from the lower realm that wouldn't illuminate the higher realm's 3,000 provinces. Moreover, even if the true vermilion bird was reborn, it would likely only be at the same level as this youth, right? His natural talents were so extraordinary, definitely comparable to the heavenly phoenix, Kunpeng, and others' heirs. Forget about everything else, just her cultivation alone was currently much inferior to Shahao's. When she thought of the past, and then the distant future, Huolinga already felt a bit emotional. She felt like she was getting further and further away from Shahao, the gap in cultivation growing larger and larger, becoming like a heavenly moat. You can even kill heavenly deities, meanwhile me, Huolinga hung her head, her eyes carrying tears, sparkling and flickering. She felt like the day would come when Shahao would ascend into the 9th heaven, while she would try to run with everything she had, yet unable to catch up. What will it be like in the future? She felt incredibly dejected. She waited so long, now finally seeing Shahao's peaceful return. It was originally supposed to be a happy and joyous event, but after the happiness just now, she now felt so dejected. What are you thinking about? The two of us both came from the lower realm, we've already made it this far. Do you think I would care about how your cultivation is? Shahao said, grabbing her delicate hands. You are like a young Kunpeng, sooner or later spreading your wings into the skies into the boundless cosmos, while I am like a delicate and weak fire mulberry flower, unable to leave the surface of the earth. Huolinga said while shedding tears. She knew that with Shahao's talents, this type of ferocious advancing speed, how could this world hold him back? He was definitely going to leave into the distance, head into an even larger great world. I can bring you with me into the 9 heavens. Shahao said, looking into her eyes. Huolinga's mind was greatly shaken, her beautiful eyes misty. She opened her mouth, wishing to say something, incomparable warmth filling her heart. The current her found it difficult to calm down. Only after a long time had passed did she recover. She looked at Shahao, thinking about too many things. He could kill heavenly deities at the age of 20, this type of talent was rarely seen through past and present. Huolinga knew that this was likely some kind of record, a type of legend. She knew that Shahao would definitely rush even higher, with many years ahead of him. Meanwhile, she couldn't reach that type of height. Perhaps many years afterwards, when her hair began to turn white, he had only experienced a tiny amount of his life. The greater the strength of the cultivator, the longer their lifespans would be. Huolinga felt that her own strength was too low. Even if she did everything she could, there was no way she could catch up to his footsteps. In reality, she felt that in the very end, when she gazed into the distance, she would only see an indistinct rear view. Just saying those words to me is already enough to make me extremely happy. Hualinga said. She wasn't going to think about it anymore. To travel together, being at each other's sides, that was already enough. She looked into the horizon, gazed at the evening sunset, wishing to say something, yet found it difficult to say anything. What are you thinking about? Cultivation being high or low doesn't mean much. With me here, would you even need to fight? Shahao tried his best to speak with an easygoing tone. What is your dream? Hualinga asked. What are you talking about, dream? That word is too heavy. Shahao laughed and said. I'll change my words then. What do you want to do in the future? Hualinga asked. Shahao understood what she was trying to say. He looked into the west's dark red clouds, the entirely red setting sun, allowing his thoughts to run freely. He entered a period of silence. He wanted to challenge the desolate border, continue from there, enter the world the willow deity saw. He was going to fight there and change the world. Right now, it was still extremely far away, but sooner or later, he would have to face it. He had no choice but to prepare for it. Hualinga knew that he had a goal in his heart, one that was great, far, definitely incomparably difficult to attain. She couldn't help but release a sigh, feeling that she would definitely be a burden if she followed him. Whatever it is you wish to do, you should just do it. She said softly. Other end of the world, anywhere under the sky. Shahao replied. He brought Hualinga into the heavens, traveling into the distance. They were going to journey the world, visit all the magnificent mountains and rivers. As Shahao and Hualinga traveled together, many things happened in the outside world. All types of events in immortal ancient remains were spread around, triggering a huge commotion. There were a few geniuses whose reputations shook the world, and there were also those who were drowned out by the brilliance of others. There was one more matter that wasn't less important than the events that took place in Immortal Ancient. The foreign guests didn't leave, waiting for all of Immortal Ancient's geniuses to come out. All of the kings that returned from Immortal Ancient, the so-called heavenly warping talent, are nothing more than this. Too weak. The foreign youngster Lin Qian said. During these past few days, he walked around with a sword in hand, chasing after the powerful geniuses that returned, wishing to have a go at them, but in the end discovered that they were really just too weak. The 3,000 Dao provinces truly have declined, becoming more and more lacking. The other foreign guests also spoke like this. This truly was the case. In the past few days, the geniuses that came back weren't their opponents at all, the difference too great. The 3,000 Dao provinces are done for, the inheritance severed. The past experts only left behind a few weak descendants. This already wasn't ridicule, but serious disappointment. The foreign youngsters already condensed great Dao flowers from immortal energy above their heads. They traveled unhindered through the higher realms, no one at their level able to match them. Where are that so-called exiled immortal and Huang? Have them come out and fight, test them out a bit. They even knew about this. Only, no one knew the exiled immortal's whereabouts, and Huang didn't show himself either. No one came to meet their challenge. Ha ha, that person shouted loudly. If the 3,000 Dao provinces didn't have geniuses that were too powerful, then there was no reason for them to waste any more time. At this moment, everyone thought about Huang, wishing for him to take action and suppress them all. Only, would Huang appear? Would he even come out to fight? Right now, quite a few people were thinking about this powerful individual. It was because they felt that if he took action, he could definitely settle things with these bastards. The foreign guests slaughtered the 3,000 provinces cultivators, until they didn't dare display any anger. They weren't their opponents at all. These people truly are too weak, can't even take a single hit. If you all only have this type of performance, yet you want to enter the heavenly deity institution, it's just impossible. The foreign guests showed great contempt for this place. The 3,000 provinces geniuses as too lacking, none of them able to take a single hit. They all spoke like this. In the outside world, wind and rain swept about. Shahao and Hualinga wandered about the mountains and rivers, feeling rather carefree and pleased. What are you thinking about? Hualinga asked. I am thinking about that hateful celestial clan. It is one thing to deal with me, but they actually tried to capture you too. Shahao said. He thought back to those people he met in the Fire Mulberry Tree Forest. Apart from Sword Valley, Fire Cloud Cavern and those other large sect's disciples, there were actually also Celestial Clan cultivations. Moreover, it was Celestial Clan who found this place first, leaking out the information. What are you going to do? Hu Linga asked. He was definitely going to do something. Go to Heaven Province. I already said back then that I would definitely pay them a visit one day. This time, I'm going to go demand an explanation. Shahao said. Soon after, they borrowed the large-scale transport formation to arrive in Heaven Province, which was the great province Celestial Clan resided in. Won't it be too dangerous? Hu Linga asked. No harm, the Celestial Clan's guardian spirit is heavily wounded and dying. Last time, he was too crafty, fleeing away, but his combat strength is already lacking. Shahao said. He arrived in a place where mountains rose and fell like dragon veins. Shahao stopped in the distance, looking forward as he said, Celestial Clan, I've returned. This video will end here.